Welcome back after the break. China and India have a long history of territorial disputes along their shared border, with the 1962 conflict being the major one. More details in this report. China and India have a long history of territorial disputes. The shared border has seen three major conflicts: the Sino-Indian War of 1962, the Chola Incident in 1967, and the 1987 Sino-India Skirmish. The biggest of these conflicts was the war in 1962. Perceiving a threat to its rule in Tibet, on July 10, 1962, 350 Chinese troops surrounded an Indian post in Chushul in Jammu and Kashmir. On October 20, 1962, China's People's Liberation Army invaded India in Ladakh and across the McMahon Line in the then Northeast Frontier Agency. Till the war actually started, the Indian side was confident that there would be a no war. Chinese troops attacked the underprepared Indian side and entered Aksai Chin, which thereafter became a disputed border area between India and China. Relations between India and China deteriorated for the rest of the 1960s and the early 1970s. In late 1967, there were two more conflicts between Indian and Chinese forces at the border in Sikkim. The first one was the Nathula Incident and the other was Chola Incident. On September 11, 1967, Chinese and Indian forces clashed at Nathula when Chinese troops opened fire on a detachment of the Indian soldiers tasked with protecting an engineering company that was fencing the north shoulder of Nathula. Over the next 5 days, there was an exchange of heavy artillery and mortar fire between the Indian and Chinese forces. 62 Indian soldiers were martyred. Indian and Chinese forces clashed again in Chola Incident. On 1st October 1967, Indian and Chinese soldiers had an argument over the control of a boulder at the Chola outpost in Sikkim. On 10th October, both sides again exchanged heavy fire. Casualties were reported from both the sides.
And there's a real problem there in terms of actually moving forward on finding a solution. On the other hand, they have not regressed. We have not seen any major problems break out. But the fundamental issue remains that the original idea, for example, in the 1980s under Deng Xiaoping, was that we would be conceding Aksai Chin to China. They would surrender their claim to Arunachal Pradesh, which they call South Tibet. Since the early 1990s, however, China has insisted that Aksai Chin is no longer part of the dispute, and the dispute only revolves around Arunachal Pradesh, which is something that India finds unacceptable. So therefore, the talks remain stalemated, if you wish, on that key point, that China has a claim but is not prepared to consider even talking about Aksai Chin.
In 1984, squads of Indian soldiers began actively patrolling the Sum-Dorong Chu Valley in Arunachal Pradesh. In the winter of 1986, China deployed their troops to the Sum-Dorong Chu before the Indian team could arrive and build a helipad at Wangdong. Surprised by the Chinese occupation, India's then Chief of Army Staff, General K. Sundarji, airlifted a brigade to the region. Chinese troops could not move any further into the valley and were forced away from the valley. By 1987, then Foreign Minister N.D. Tiwari and Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi travelled to Beijing to negotiate a mutual de-escalation. The Doklam standoff in 2017 became the worst crisis between the two sides since the 1962 war, lasting as long as 2 months. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. After a long lull of over 30 years, the border tensions between China and India peaked in recent years. The most notable incident was the one in Doklam in 2017. Let's see what it was all about.
In June 2017, a territorial dispute with China came alive as a full-blown standoff at the Doklam Plateau. This continued for the next 2 months amid reports that suggested China was increasing its military presence in the area. Doklam or Donglang in Chinese is spread over nearly 100 square kilometers. It comprises a plateau and a valley at the tri-junction between India, Bhutan and China. It is surrounded by the Chumbi Valley of Tibet, Bhutan's Ha Valley and Sikkim. Doklam is located close to the Siliguri corridor that connects India with its northeastern region. It is also called Chicken's Neck and is a vulnerable point for India. China is at a military disadvantage since both Indian and Bhutanese troops are on a higher ground around the valley. Bringing the area under its control gives China the strategic advantage of not only getting a commanding view but also easy access to Chumbi Valley and the Siliguri corridor.
When Doklam was happening, India was very restrained. India maintained its position but said and held its ground, but nothing more. The Chinese side waited and they realized that India is not intending to escalate or the dispute. So it was successful. And then Wuhan, the Prime Minister met Xi Jinping. And that spirit of Wuhan now suffuses the relationship between India and China. And in Brasilia, both have emphasized that aspect.
Trouble started on June 16, 2017 when China tried to build a road in the area. Bhutan objected to Chinese troops bringing equipment to extend a road towards the Bhutanese army camp near the Jamperi Ridge in Doklam. Bhutan also told China that a road inside its territory directly violates bilateral boundary agreements. As an ally of Bhutan, India was drawn into the standoff after Bhutan requested its help. Indian troops entered Doklam and stopped the construction. Thereafter, media reports citing satellite images and intelligence inputs suggested that China had erected several permanent military posts, a few helipads and new trenches. On June 30th, the Ministry of External Affairs said such construction would represent a significant change of status quo with serious security implications for India. The Chinese government released a map to accuse India of trespassing into its territory, claiming India was impeding boundary talks between China and Bhutan. The claim, however, doesn't stand since Bhutan has agreed to let India guide its foreign policy and defense affairs, making it a protected state of India. In 2007, it signed a new friendship treaty that made it mandatory for Bhutan to take India's guidance on foreign policy. On 28 August 2017, India and China announced that they had agreed to pull their troops back from the face-off in Doklam. China has in the past been guilty of incursions in Ladakh at the Depsang Valley in 2013, the Chumar area in 2014 and the Pangong Tso in 2017. It has claimed that this has been due to the absence of a clear demarcation of the line of actual control. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of In Depth. We will be back same time tomorrow with a focus on another key subject. You can also watch our program online on YouTube. Suggestions and feedback about the program are welcome. Thank you.